Welcome to Talk Law Radio. I'm Todd Marquardt on the radio, on Facebook Live, on YouTube, and on talklawradio.com. Today, we're going to be talking about uncertainty and Thanksgiving. Are you feeling uncertain about the markets this season? Joining me is special guest Joseph Warren. Let's dig deep into inflation, debt, and taxes and how we celebrate Thanksgiving.
Yep.
When the economy's got us guessing. Keep listening for real talk, timely insights, and a dose of the holiday spirit. When people say we live in uncertain times, they're typically referring to periods characterized by high levels of unpredictability, instability, and rapid change across various aspects of life, such as politics, the economy, society, technology, or global events. Today, we're excited to have Joseph back with us to dive into some critical topics around protecting your retirement.
Mm-hmm.
You might remember that Joseph is a financial planner with Financial Planning HQ, and Financial Planning HQ is one of our sponsors. Joseph, welcome back to the show.
Really happy to be here.
Can you tell us what are some of the threats that exist to people's retirement plans?
Yeah, that's a great question. And you mentioned debt, taxes, inflation. I think those are three things we're all not going to be grateful for this Thanksgiving.
Good point.
One of them is, taxes, that last one there. And during my first week here, I talked about the IRS and our $38 trillion in debt that our country has. And tariffs can maybe, it's like a drop in the bucket. It can have a small impact on that. But most of that money is going to come from taxation of the citizens, right? And there's a lot of, spending kind of getting out of control. It's something that's been talked about a lot this year. We had the Department of Governmental Efficiency and things like that.
Right.
And, there's road work to do, but there's also, silly uses of the money. One that I found for this episode is they did a study on if pigeons can develop gambling addictions. It's a real study. You can look it up if you're curious.
Pigeons and their gambling addictions.
Yep.
Do they go to Vegas?
They would press a button and sometimes it would give them a random reward. So they would get food or not get food versus certainty, and they would choose to gamble.
Oh, okay.
Which I guess it could be useful. But
I'm going to talk to you about that later in the show. I have some important things related to financial planning and related to the holidays.
Oh, yeah. And I think we'll talk about a lot of different stuff. But with the IRS, to fund those studies, they use our tax dollars. They tax the citizens.
Mm-hmm.
So our philosophy as a company is that we want our clients to pay the least amount of taxes possible. And we do that with tax strategy as one piece of the puzzle, with investment strategy, goal planning, and everything else. But one client that my father worked with, actually, very good clients of ours, he found a mistake. So we do something called a tax document review, where we'll actually look at the past 3 years of tax returns and see if we can find any mistakes with our CPA partners that we work with, or with the client CPA if they cooperate with that. So we'll look at everything. And one that he found was we had done something called a 1035 exchange, which is it's a tax code word, but all it means is it's an exchange of an insurance product that's tax-free, from insurance product to insurance product.
Okay.
There's a real estate version too, where if you buy another real estate, property, you can defer those taxes.
Right.
But it wasn't entered that way. And that ended up saving that client $12,000 on their taxes.
Wow. That's a lot.
So that was, that's a good one that I remember. And it's funny that, that's coming up now, because just recently, like a month ago, I had a similar situation with one of my own clients. So he was a business owner. It wasn't the retirement situation, but he was a business owner that his biggest concern when he came to me was taxes. He said, he had a really good income, works in the oil fields. He, was paying so much money in taxes, it was starting to slow him down towards his goals.
Right.
And, so we threw everything we could at that. We had him set up an S corporation to save on the FICA taxes. That ended up saving about $10,000 per year, just having that S corporation set up.
Great.
Set up tax deferred retirement accounts, because he didn't have that set up, tax-free accounts as well. So we'll have, tax-free money growing, and also some tax breaks for this year. But one of the biggest things we said to do was actually to hire a new CPA, work with one of our preferred partners. And the reason why is because we were working on that plan, we would call a CPA and very unresponsive. Took months to get back. And then when we talked to them, not very interested in any planning, just almost a historical type of role.
Right.
We just handle the taxes. We don't care about the
Just
strategy.
doing the 1040.
Yep. But he didn't want to do that first year, so he just decided not to. It can be a tough thing, so he didn't fire a CPA.
Right.
But future year, we were doing that tax document return, and we looked at everything, and we saw that there was a huge deduction missing, qualified business income deduction, and that was a $30,000 or $40,000 deduction he was entitled to that wasn't on there. So just adding that on there on the amended tax is going to save him about $10,000 in his taxes.
That's great.
So whether it's I've never had a situation with the client where we weren't in some way able to improve it. Sometimes it's a quick 10,000, 12,000, but the long-term strategy is even more powerful. You can sometimes see hundreds of thousands of savings. Working with really smart CPAs, we're going to have Mark Nelson on, you mentioned.
Right. And
who's one of our
couple of weeks.
Yeah. Working with, top-notch people to come up with great strategies. We're always able to improve the situation.
Awesome. Well, taxes can sneak up on anyone.
Yep.
And you almost don't feel like you're getting anything in return except for, well, the military and protecting society.
There's good and bad. Yeah.
It's clear that proactive planning really matters.
Yep.
So what's another threat that exists to people's retirement plans?
Yeah. Another one I talked about last week, and I called it the silent thief. I don't know if you remember, but silent thief goes in there to the grocery store and changes the prices, makes it more expensive each time you go. And I think one client I like talking about with this, because we've had a recent bout of this in 2020, starting with the COVID pandemic, right? There was a slowdown, a shutdown, and there was a lot of pent up demand. So when people, came out of the shutdown, they spent money like crazy. The restaurants were full. I don't know if you all remember
and
that.
the government gave people money to do that.
Yep. And there was a lot of money printing, including the stimulus checks, right? And that created inflation. So 2 years later, you saw inflation rates at 9.1%. There was talk of inflation might get out of control. So the government started tightening the money supply a little bit to deal with that, and they raised rates.
Right.
But during that time, we had a client who had a lot of money just in cash and low earning interest bearing accounts, like, checking and savings account earning 0.1% or less.
Yeah. People do that when they're afraid, right?
And it was because of fear. And it was something that we talk about. And a lot of times I didn't, money is emotional is something that I like to say. Really, our money decisions are emotional. But we talked through that, and we had what I call like a come to Jesus meeting. And I showed that if you keep doing what you're doing, you have a 3% chance of success in retirement. But if you invest strategically, little by little over time, we could get you to it was 84% chance of success. And we talked through how they felt about the market and everything. They decided to go with what we said to do. And during downturns, we took a small account and grew it pretty large. But every time there was a downswing, we would just have a market alert, and we would just make sure that they could put 10,000 in, put 10,000 in. And that client, we actually got him up to 100% chance of success this year. He retired, I believe, a month ago or 2 months in August. And we're having a retirement party for him, next week.
How cool is that? Y'all are great.
Yep.
That's a great story about how turning his low odds into 100% is really amazing.
Yeah.
Do you have any other takeaways for today?
Yeah, we talk about uncertainty, and I think one thing is it's really powerful if you just combine everything together. So it's not just about minimizing taxes, it's minimizing taxes while maximizing your investment returns, but also protecting the downside, making sure you're not taking on too much risk. We get into like cash flow planning, even budget planning. We'll help our clients with that, but making sure there's some money going towards their goals, going towards, investments account set up for each goal. Every account has a clear purpose, so the clients can check their dashboard and see like real quickly, am I on track for my goals or not?
Right.
How is this account for this goal doing? And then you get into once we have everything protecting it with insurance, making sure that there's hedges in place if anything goes wrong. But the big thing I want to say, and of course, estate planning, working with top-notch people like you, we're able to make sure people's wishes are carried out.
Yeah,
whether they speak for themselves or not. But the thing is, our clients don't really worry that much about when Trump announces a tariff. When Liberation Day happened in April and the stock market was crashing.
Your clients.
Our clients.
Because they know, they've seen on paper, they've seen the math about how it's supposed to work out.
They know and have that certainty, but at the same time, they also know there's backup plans as well. We talk
Okay.
about, if this happens, if there's a market downturn, this is what we're going to do. This is why we have this cash sitting here. This is why we have this set up to protect the
Okay.
downside. And that puts them in a place where they have much more peace of mind, more free time to not focus on like what's happening in China, what's happening here.
Right.
And they can just focus on living their lives, spending time with their family, doing the things that are more important than money. And we handle the finances, but answer to them. And we tell them, this is what we're doing. This is how it looks towards your goals. We have our meeting, and they know that they're on track, even if things go wrong, because uncertainty is a certainty in a long enough time frame. There's always going to be some uncertainty.
Right. Well, that's biblical.
Right?
It says there's going to be wars and rumors of wars and
Yep.
natural disasters, and nobody can predict what's going to happen next.
For everything a season. So it's kind of like having a plan in place makes it so no matter what happens, you have that peace of mind. You know you're going to be okay.
Do you have any resources for us?
I do. I created a year-end tax planning guide for the first week, and I'm just going to send that to anyone who calls me at 210-444-2128. Just a year-end tax planning guide, completely free. And for the first 3 people who sign up, I'll also send a book. And, you know, if this sounds like something you want and you want to schedule a complimentary consultation, just mention it on the phone and we can get you scheduled for that. No obligation, but we want to really sit down and help you make good decisions with your money.
And what's the number again?
210-444-2128.
Stay tuned. We got to take a break. Howdy, South Texas and San Antonio on KLUP 930 AM, 630 KSLR at 11 o'clock in the mornings on Saturdays and 9:30 AM on Sunday afternoons at 4:30. Also, hello Houston on KNTH 1070 AM and 103.3 FM. When there's inflation, debt, taxes, uncertainty in the markets, uncertainty in the economy, tariffs, AI taking jobs, autonomous vehicles crashing, corrupt politicians, assassinations, and war, what can we do?
Focus on what you can control would be our philosophy.
That's a great plan there. You're a good planner. Let's talk about inflation.
Yeah.
I listen to a lot of radio because I want people to listen to me. And so I'm trying to be a better radio host.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of disagreement about inflation.
Yeah.
And how much is it really?
Mhm.
And I know friends of ours probably talk about prices at the grocery store. So we know that prices are going up.
Yeah.
But the politicians on both sides argue about whose fault it was and who made it better.
Yeah.
But what's some practical things that we can do or should know about in regards to inflation?
Yeah. First thing is, with inflation, it's good to have something that's growing faster than inflation. And, you know, you can argue if it really is 3% inflation per year or if it's more. I believe it's more. Not to be doom and gloom, but I feel like with statistics, you can kind of massage the numbers. You can take things out and kind of change the numbers that way. Like, it may not be the nicest steak that they have in that consumer price index that they're using. It could be something that's cheaper and cheaper, and you can kind of lower it that way. But making sure you have assets, and then I think gold is good. It's a good part of someone's portfolio, not for everything, but as a hedge. So it's good to have, you know, either GLD, paper gold. Some of my clients have physical gold, some form there, because gold tends to hold its value over time.
Do you have one of your subject matter experts on gold?
There's people that I've talked to, but I don't have a clear subject matter experts. But we do have sort of like a list, like an Excel spreadsheet of like the best places to buy it with the best deals.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of those companies advertising on the radio right now.
Oh, there's so many. And it's a good inflation hedge. Not to get rich or anything. It's done very well recently. It almost went parabolic.
But
they
what do
say.
we do how do we go to the grocery store? I mean, prices are higher. Some people, uh, they're struggling to manage their budget.
Yeah. Well, I mean, something I wanted to talk about a little bit was the K-shaped recovery, which is kind of what we're in right now, or a K-shaped economy.
Okay.
And that shows that the people who have assets, who have investments, they're in the top part of the K. They're doing well.
Okay.
They feel because the stock market's doing well, they're almost protected from the economy, the state of the economy as it is right now.
Right.
That's like the top 10%. The bottom 90% are not. And that's a situation where, struggling to get food at the grocery store, things like that. Things are getting very expensive. People are getting priced out of homes is something I talked about last time.
Right.
And with that, I think it's just, you have to become an asset owner. You have to put some of your money towards something that will grow faster than inflation. And think long term. You have to be disciplined. And a good rule of thumb that I always live by or like is from like The Richest Man in Babylon. You take 10%, you can save it, 10% invest it, 10% towards debt, and then live off the rest of the 70%.
Okay. So maybe instead of complaining, we should do more planning.
There's always something you can do to improve your situation. And that victim mentality is not going to get you ahead because it just kind of gets you comfortable being in a bad situation.
Right.
So there's a big thing I would say is focus on what you can control. And I don't know if you want to talk about Bitcoin. I also think Bitcoin has a place for inflation protection as well because it's deflationary. There's a limited supply of it.
Right. Well, we'll see where that goes.
Yeah.
Let's talk about debt. Does the national debt matter to working class people?
It doesn't seem like it does. It's kind of interesting how finances work. It just seems like, okay, that's cool. It's $38 trillion. Who cares? But if you break it down, that's like 131,000 per taxpayer, including, babies being born. It's not a good precedent of taking care of the next generation to have that big of a debt and be spending money. Just think about it. We think about a government. It's this big, could be considered a bureaucracy. But if you think about it like a household, it's like you're born into a household where
you're already in debt.
You're just born into debt. You're kind of, and debt is close to, it's almost biblical. It's very close to this idea of like servitude. You're like you're kind of being pushed down. You have to fight against, not to be a victim, but it is a situation of, I don't think it's the ideal situation. And it does impact people. It impacts how much they get paid. It impacts the economy they have. So it's, these numbers, they kind of seem unemotional, but they impact people's lives.
Yeah. And you remember what happened to Greece a few years ago?
Yeah, they had a crisis. I remember that. Yeah.
Right. Because their debt was so large, the government just couldn't afford to keep spending.
Yeah.
Because their spending outweighed their revenue. And I know that that's what's happening to the United States right now.
Yeah.
But what also happened is that most of the population of Greece was employed by the government.
Yeah. And that's risky. Yeah.
So when they had to scale back, cut those jobs, there was high unemployment.
Yeah. And we can see it play out in different cultures over time, even past empires over time. But at some point, it becomes a thing where like, if you have a really large debt, it starts hurting your credit rating. It starts impacting other things. It can't last forever. No. In my opinion.
So the government should really do something about that without raising taxes.
That's kind of why nothing ever changes, because it's always a short-term mindset, and no one wants to raise taxes. But I think
because if they raise taxes, then they're just going to want to spend more. So they should really just cut the spending.
The incentive of the government is to spend the most money possible. That's how you get. That's like like a business wants to make a profit. The government wants to spend as much money as for their constituents as possible.
So they can get reelected.
So it's almost goes to incentives. We, talk about sometimes corruption, but it goes to like the incentives are kind of set up that way to favor going into debt, just like in a personal household, there are incentives to get into credit card debt because you see, something you want to buy and you can just have it really
Commercials.
easily. Yeah.
Right, they advertise for that.
Mhm.
So maybe if we only voted for those politicians that spent the least amount of our money.
Yeah. If there, so these things could be fixed. You would just have to change the incentive structure
Right,
where you would get incentivized to be a disciplined budgeter
right.
with money that really isn't yours. Like people act like tax money is free. That's someone worked for that money.
Right,
People work until March, April, and they're just working for the government. Like that money is going to go just to the government.
right.
So
Yeah, I don't like that. It says in the Bible, Jesus said, Render unto Caesar what is Caesar's,
Mhm.
render unto God what is God's."
Mhm.
But I think under his breath, he may have said, Render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, but not a penny more.
why would you want to pay more? They're not the best stewards of the money, in my opinion.
Right. Well, plus, if you save that money, you can put it to work in a savings account or in an investment or something else.
Yeah. There's even, people have been talking about Social Security and how that wasn't even good stewardship because it's, people say it's going to run out of money in 2030, 2035, unless they get together and do the thing no one wants to do, which is raise taxes or kind of make the benefits worse. And
Right.
but if they had invested that money, it would be fine.
I heard somebody talking about that on the radio when George W. Bush sort of floated that idea of allowing people to invest their own Social Security dollars in the market.
Mhm.
Where would it be now?
Yeah, that was a good idea on Bush. It was Bush Jr.
Yeah, George W.
George W. Yeah, if that had been done, that would have helped the market. People would have been investors. It's a K-shaped recovery, so there'd be more people on the top of that K.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, it's not good stewardship to just have it sitting there.
Right.
And it's slated to
And
run
if
out of
you
money.
just look at a historical graph of the market, where it was then and where it is now, it's higher now.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Market tends to, over every 12-year time period, it's gone up. So it's a wild ride, but the market always gets better over time with technology and other things.
Well, we're talking about uncertainty during Thanksgiving, and Joseph Warren is a financial planner with Financial Planning HQ, so he has some knowledge about this. You study inflation and debt and taxes.
Yeah.
And you probably study other positive things like investments and insurance. And
yes,
let's talk about that when we come back, all the study that you have to do to help your clients.
Yeah.
So today we're talking about Thanksgiving also. So keep in mind what you're going to be thankful for or who you're going to be thankful for. By the time the show's on the air, of course, Thanksgiving will have already passed, but send me a note at host@talklawradio.com. Let me know what you were thankful for, or post a comment on Facebook or post a comment on YouTube. Help spread the love. Let's have gratitude for those things that we do have.
for sure.
This is Talk Law Radio. You can hear me on the radio, 9:30 a.m., 6:30 a.m., KNTH 1070 in Houston, or podcasts everywhere, Facebook Live or YouTube. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Talk Law Radio. Here on the radio to help you discover your legal issue blind spots by listening to me talk about the law on the radio. And this is our third segment. Hopefully, we can do sinners and saints. You know, I love the sinners and the saints because Martin Luther, the famous theologian who nailed his 95 Thesis to the church door, said that all of us are sinners and saints sometimes at the same time. This is where we're supposed to go.
It's a song.
Okay, so I said before the break that we were going to talk about your education, but then I remembered this is the third segment. We're supposed to be talking about sinners and saints.
Mm-hmm.
And so the sinner this week, I wanted to talk about the NBA betting scandal.
Oh, yeah.
And everybody that got caught up in that. Now, the facts that I have are allegedly in October 2025, Portland Trail Blazers coach Chauncey Billups, Miami Heat guard Terry Rozier, and former player and assistant coach Damon Jones were arrested, along with 34 total individuals charged in a wide-ranging illegal gambling and money laundering conspiracy linked to organized crime. Did you hear about that?
I did, yeah. I saw that.
What was your reaction?
Almost going back to the economy, I feel like there's been a rise of gambling in society. Like it's a lot bigger with like you can gamble on your phone.
Well, in 2018, the Supreme Court of the United States decided a case that allowed it to happen.
Yeah. And, you know, I go to the gas station, I see people gambling in the gas station now, which I didn't used to see. It seems like a newer thing. Like they have vending machines, not vending machines, slot machines. You can bet on world events. You can bet on, you know, whether the Federal Reserve president's going to like drop rates or keep them the same. You can actually bet on like political everything nowadays. And I think that kind of goes to the economy as well. It's kind of like lottery tickets are always very popular with people who don't have a lot of money or a lot of hope as a chance to get something. And I feel like you're kind of seeing like gambling take over culturally, where it's like, you know, watch ESPN and you'll see like it's sponsored by a gambling company.
Right.
Yeah.
And so where does gambling fit into my financial plan?
That's a great question. So I've had a client actually have what was it? The tax form that you get. I think it's like a W-2G for gambling winning. So I've had clients win, and all we did was say, okay, this is great that you won. Let's put it to good use, and we're going to look to mitigate the tax bill from the extra money. But that's kind of like a windfall. I would say it's fun to do it with a budget, but just don't go overboard.
Well, since you work with financially successful people, you probably don't see a lot of gambling losses.
I don't see a lot of gambling losses.
I mean, that's why they're financially successful, because they don't gamble.
Yeah, no, I've seen gambling wins only. I've never seen anyone with any losses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, in estate planning, we talk about gambling with our clients. Usually it's a child. Usually it's a son that's betting on sports.
Yeah.
And our clients worry that if I leave an inheritance, the money that I worked for or the assets that I worked to build up, and I leave it to this addicted gambler, well, he's just going to gamble it away.
Yeah. And
so that doesn't make me feel good. You know, part of leaving an inheritance is giving.
Yeah.
You know, it's a gift. And so if you were going to give your church or your favorite charity a bunch of money and they went out and just spent it frivolously, you wouldn't be happy about that.
No.
Okay, so that's the sinner.
Yep.
The saint today is Abraham Lincoln. And on my outline, I even titled it Saint Abraham Lincoln. You know, in politics and United States culture, we hold Abraham Lincoln in very high esteem.
Yep.
And he gave a speech about Thanksgiving. It's a prayer. And so I'm going to just read it. Bear with me. It has pleased Almighty God to prolong our natural life another year, defending us with his guardian care against unfriendly designs from abroad, and vouchsafing to us in his mercy many and signal victories over the enemy, who is of our own household. It has also pleased our Heavenly Father to favor as well our citizens in their homes as our soldiers in their camps and our sailors on the rivers and seas with unusual health. He has largely augmented our free population by emancipation and by immigration, while he has opened to us new sources of wealth and has crowned the labor of our working men in every department of industry with abundant rewards. Moreover, he has been pleased to animate and inspire our hearts and minds with fortitude, courage, and resolution sufficient for the great trial of civil war into which we have been brought by our adherence as a nation to the cause of freedom and humanity, and to afford to us reasonable hopes of an ultimate and happy deliverance from all our dangers and afflictions. Now, therefore, I, Abraham Lincoln, President of the United States, do hereby appoint and set apart the last Thursday in November next as a day which I desire to be observed by all my fellow citizens, wherever they may be, as a day of thanksgiving and praise to Almighty God, the beneficent creator and ruler of the universe. And I do further recommend to my fellow citizens aforesaid that on that occasion they do reverently humble themselves in the dust, and from thence offer up penitent and fervent prayers and supplications to the great disposer of events for a return of the inestimable blessings of peace, union, and harmony throughout the land, which it has pleased him to assign as a dwelling place for ourselves and for our posterity throughout all generations.
Yeah.
That's a long speech. Thank you
Wow.
for bearing with me. What do you think about Abraham Lincoln's speech about Thanksgiving?
Wait, so he invented Thanksgiving? I didn't know that. He did that?
Well, we learned in school that it was the Pilgrims and the Native Americans sitting down.
I remember that, yeah. But and it has like the Christian kind of bearing to it too, which I didn't know.
Oh yeah, he was a
Same.
big believer.
Yeah. I think I like it. It's a beautiful speech.
Okay, so back to financial planning. I was talking about inflation, debt, taxes, and the thought just came to me that you probably have to study a lot in order to be able to advise your clients on how they can get from A to B.
Yeah, it's I think recently a big thing was like the one big beautiful bill. The Genius Act was something. The laws are constantly changing. It's in the era that we're in right now, and keeping up to date with those rules has been good, with the lens of how can this help my clients?
Right.
Like what in here is going to help my list of clients that I have right here.
Right.
And so that's been a big thing recently. I've noticed, law changes, but then just reading a lot of books on how to choose good investments, the philosophy of different investment types and things like that.
Oh, you know what you might want to read?
Yeah.
Poor Charlie's Almanac.
I've been wanting, that's been on my list forever.
It's a great book. It's very technical. You know, he was a brilliant, he was a genius probably.
Yeah.
But he had philosophies on how to do things. And he had a very specific thought process about how to solve problems. And so you would really like that as a former scientist. Why don't you remind our audience where you came from?
Yeah, my background, I had a bachelor's degree in biochemistry, a bachelor's of science, and then went to UCLA to study biochemistry. So I have a scientific background, and I do actually use that still to this day, because people always ask me that, like, do you use, and I use it for running experiments for clients, different simulations of does this work or not, isolating the variables, and kind of saying what's a good move for this client to make and substantiating it.
And you left that industry sort of because you really like working with people.
I love being around people, and I was miserable in the fume hood, which is what we use in doing organic chemistry. You would just be in a fume hood by yourself, mixing chemicals, and waiting. And I love the teaching part of it. and I still get to teach to this day. I love teaching. So.
All right. So you combine science and people to help people with their financial roadmap.
Yep, help them figure out exactly what it is they want and then get there. Yep,
Awesome.
we love it.
Okay, so we've been talking about Thanksgiving a little bit with Abraham Lincoln's prayer. We've been talking about uncertainty in the economy, uncertainty in the markets, and Joseph has been talking about inflation, debt, and taxes. I do want to talk more about uncertainty in the market.
Yeah.
Because people sort of think of that as gambling. If you talk to gamblers,
Mm-hmm.
they'll say, I have a better chance at winning here than the market.
Yeah.
Because they watch the news, the market goes up and down.
Yeah.
And so what can you do?
Yeah. I want to go back to something you said. I think the greatest
Well, we
financial...
only have 30 seconds.
Okay. The greatest financial minds are philosophers like you're talking about Charlie Munger and people like that. And if you're a long-term thinker and you actually kind of conquer your emotions of fear and greed, you will do much better investing. And if you think long-term, I think it's gambling if you're very short-term, like I need to make this money this week on an options contract, but there's ways you can have an edge, especially if you think long-term and buy a good company at a good price.
Okay, we'll talk about that and more after the break. Stay tuned. In the beginning, God had one law: don't eat from the fruit of that tree. Then he gave Moses the 10 Commandments. And now we have municipal, state, and federal lawmakers that won't stop creating new laws, laws that might impact you without you knowing it. So listen to Talk Law Radio on Saturdays and Sundays, and anytime on podcast or YouTube. Subscribe to YouTube, give me a thumbs up, and post a comment. Now, this is the fourth segment, so we're going to talk about legacy.
And now, it's time for the Talk Law Radio Legacy Spotlight. What's your legacy? Sponsored by Marquardt Law Firm.
Joseph, attorneys at Marquardt Law Firm focus on business and estate law, including last wills and living trusts. It's all about legacy. So today, I want to talk about somebody's bad legacy. Remember Luigi Mangione?
Yes. Yeah.
The guy that assassinated the United Health
The CEO.
CEO. Well, there was a story on boldfact.com. I don't remember where I got this article because I didn't even know that boldfact.com was a website. So I probably got it from some email newsletter. I have to subscribe to a lot of newsletters. But anyway, it says the grandmother of Luigi Mangione, man accused of the murder of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, reportedly left tens of millions of dollars to her children and grandchildren after she passed away on one condition: any grandchild who wanted to inherit money could not be, quote, charged, indicted, convicted of, or plead guilty to a felony.
Yeah.
End quote.
Yeah.
Did you hear that?
That's crazy. That's like poetic justice. That's
right.
Crazy. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So now I want to have one of those clauses in my will.
That's a good clause. Yeah. Don't break the law.
Well, I say that, but I think that the toxic political environment that we're in, if you're a high profile person in any industry, you could be targeted and somebody could file charges that you committed a crime.
Lawfare. Yeah, it's been a thing recently.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether I might have to expand that to say unless it's found to be lawfare related,
Yeah, or politically or something. Yeah.
politically motivated.
Yeah.
So in this legacy segment, I thought it would be good to talk about goals.
Mhm.
And because I ran into this other article, what age do people around the world think is best to reach major life milestones?
Mhm.
And so you're a very goal oriented person
Mhm.
yourself and as a person, and the financial planning that you do, sort of, you probably have benchmarks and goals that your clients want to achieve.
Mhm.
And so I kind of wanted to compare that to milestones that a person would achieve over his or her life,
Mhm.
like buying your first house, getting your first job. And here's an example. At estate planning seminar conventions that I go to a lot of them.
Yeah.
Because I want to know everything about cutting edge legal strategies for my clients.
Nice.
And so I do at least double the CE hours that are required of me by the state bar of Texas. And what I've discovered is that, or what estate planning attorneys like to talk about, like when we're sitting around,
Mhm.
is the age of maturity, financial maturity,
Yeah.
to be more specific.
Hmm.
In the past, your parents and our parents and our grandparents, they probably got their first job sooner than we did. They
Yeah.
probably got their first professional job sooner than we did.
Mhm.
And they were probably financially independent sooner than we are.
Mhm.
And so, do you sort of see that trend
Yeah.
with people that you meet with? Because you meet with a lot of people, not everybody is a good fit to be your client.
Yeah. I think people who tend to come to me tend to be more organized and more ready than the average person in their age range. Because I've had, Gen Z, millennial, I met with pretty much every generation.
Mm-hmm.
But I've definitely noticed that trend on the whole of people maturing later. Yeah. Like people get married later, it's just become sort of a trend recently.
Right. And some people are not getting married at all. I've been hearing that more and more from my clients, that they have a son or daughter that never got married. They lived in the house they
Yeah.
grew up in their whole life until their parents passed away, and they're still living there. They never left to do anything.
Failure to launch. Yeah. I guess that's what they call it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just, well, and the reason that we talk about it is because we can do this trust for kids.
Yeah.
And back in the olden days, it was a trust just for the minor child,
Mhm.
because a minor child cannot inherit anything, even by way of life insurance or retirement plan.
Mhm.
The financial services company just won't write the check to a 4-year-old.
For sure. Yeah. That's good.
And so that's why we include this trust for minors.
Yeah.
And so the age that the beneficiary could finally receive their money used to be 18.
Mhm.
But now my clients are saying that their 18-year-old who can buy firearms and cigarettes and
Gamble.
go off to war and
Yeah.
gamble,
Yeah.
they're still not financially mature yet.
Mhm. The brain doesn't mature until age 25, from what I remember.
Well, I heard that too. The brain isn't fully developed. It's the frontal part of the brain where you have executive function, where you can plan
Yeah.
ahead and think of what the consequences might be.
Mhm.
And I don't know if I made this up or if I read about it or heard about it on the news, but that it's the auto insurance industry that did a study, and that's when they give you a discount on your auto insurance at age 25,
Oh, wow.
because the brain is finally fully developed.
That's good. Yeah. Yeah.
So what are some other milestones or goals that you think people should hit or achieve at certain ages?
Yeah. I think everyone's different. So, and I don't want to be too diplomatic, but I know I've seen clients, buy their first home, get tired of renting. I've seen people, where, we recommended the realtor and everything. They got the key and they bought their first home. Getting a rental property is something I see a lot that people want to do to get people towards a certain level of financial independence or getting passive income.
Right.
Sometimes they are just, like one of my first goals was to get my car, a nice car. Sometimes
Right.
it's a depreciating asset. It's just something that's a nice to have.
Right.
But I think the biggest goal and the most important is financial independence or financial freedom, which is get it as soon as possible. And it's a point where you don't have to work unless you want to. You don't have to take on a client unless you want to,
Right.
or you have money from
Right.
investments.
To be able to decide.
Yeah. And the sooner the better.
Well, here's one that from the time my children were babies,
Yeah.
I told them that they had to leave the house when they graduated high school or turned 18.
Yeah.
And I wasn't doing that to be mean. I thought of it as a milestone
Yeah.
because that's what I did. I moved to go to college at Texas Tech University.
Yeah.
And so I just expected that they would do the same. And then I discovered that they didn't really want to go off to college. They wanted to stay here in town.
Okay. Yeah.
And so my daughter was still living at the house
Mhm.
and going to school at the community college. And then she decided to move out. And I was a little bit shocked by it. And she said, "Dad, you told me I had to leave
Yeah.
when I was a baby."
Yeah.
No, she's doing well and we're happy for her.
Yeah.
That's just one of the milestones, going off to college.
Yeah. That's a huge one. Moving out I think is a huge one. Going off to college.
Oh, I wanted to say something more about Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Because we did talk a lot about doom and gloom
Yeah.
things like inflation, taxes, debt, assassination, wars, corrupt politicians.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to read a poem by Edgar Guest.
Mhm.
When things go wrong, as they sometimes will, and the road you're trudging seems all uphill, when the funds are low and the debts are high and you want to smile but you have to sigh, when care is pressing you down a bit, rest if you must, but don't you quit. Life is queer with its twists and turns, as every one of us sometimes learns. And many a failure turns about when he might have won had he stuck it out. Don't give up when the pace seems slow. You may succeed with another blow. Often the goal is nearer than it seems to a faint and faltering man. Often the struggler has given up when he might have captured the victor's cup. And he learned too late when the night slipped down how close he was to the golden crown. Success is failure turned inside out, the silver tint of clouds of doubt. And you never can tell how close you are. It may be near when it seems afar. So stick to the fight when your hardest hit. It's when things seem worse that you mustn't quit.
Yeah.
Isn't that great?
That's where character is built, right? Like during those tough times. I love that poem.
Amen. Well, we have to end the show. Thank you, Joseph,
Mhm.
for staying the whole time and talking with me about Thanksgiving.
Always a pleasure.
Uncertain Thanksgiving. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Most families don't realize they have hidden legal blind spots until it's too late. Wills, trusts, Medicaid planning, even protecting a business. These are the kinds of issues attorney Todd Marquardt helps uncover before they become problems. Todd is the host of Talk Law Radio, where each week he guides listeners through the legal challenges families, veterans, and business owners face, while showing them the practical steps to protect what matters most. Catch Talk Law Radio, Saturdays at 11 a.m. on 9:30 a.m. The Answer, 6:30 a.m. The Word, and now in Houston on AM 1070 and 103.3 FM The Answer, or anytime on YouTube. Planning isn't just about documents. It's about peace of mind, security for loved ones, and building a legacy that lasts. Don't wait for a crisis. Do it before you die.